can't protect what you can't see is still true, and it's in 2026.
Where is AI creating the most efficiency when it comes to security operations? Welcome to Inside the Mesh. I'm Diego Ramirez, and today we have Sandeep Yadav, the VP of Integrated Solutions and Professional Services at Bell Cyber. Welcome, Sandeep.
Well, happy to be here, Diego. Thanks for having me.
Sandeep, can you tell us about your role?
Absolutely. So I'm the VP of Integrated Solutions and Professional Services team. I have a large team of experienced resources that I currently manage that are helping organizations protect their digital assets. I started my journey as a SOC analyst almost 16 years ago, and I have firsthand appreciation of what our analysts go through, providing 24/7 support to protect the critical infrastructure that our clients have entrusted us with. So I started again as a blue teamer, specifically focusing on that. But then over the years, I was fortunate enough, to be allowed to get trained on offensive security side as well. Because I believe that if you want to be a good defender, you need to think as the adversary as well, right? Something that is critical. Because if you can't relate yourself, or you can't relate to the tactics and the techniques the attackers are using, you're probably going to fall behind. You're not going to be able to stay abreast with all the evolving attacks and the threats. So I bring that knowledge and the expertise, and I'm able to share that with our extended team within our SOC, outside the SOC as well, to make sure that they're doing the best job they can in ensuring that our customers remain protected and they can sleep well at night.
Sandeep, when an organization declares a Priority 1 incident, what are the first 3 actions that all incident response teams should take in order to stay away from risk?
That's a good one, and before I even answer your question, I'm going to start by saying that if as an organization you haven't done proper planning as part of your incident response, you're already starting from a losing position, okay? Because when that P1 hits, when the P1 gets declared, the energy in the room suddenly changes, phones are lit up, Slack and Teams channels start exploding, and people want answers immediately. Right? So, but in those first few hours, the most important thing isn't technical, it's structure. Okay? The very first thing we do is establish command. Who's in charge, who's leading, who's making the decisions, and who's communicating externally. If you don't create order quickly, chaos becomes your biggest risk. And that's where I think most organizations struggle, even the seasoned ones, where they have a well-defined incident management plan, incident response plan. Oftentimes, not deciding who the incident commander is right at the beginning of the incident when it gets declared can be quite challenging. Second, we focus on containment, right? You're not going to have perfect information in the first hour, and that's okay. But you need to stop the bleeding. You need to start containing and isolating assets that are compromised, disabling compromised accounts, restricting lateral movement, right? Buy yourself time, to do all these things again in much more detail, but within the first few hours, start from the position of what you already know. And last, but not the least, is preserving evidence, right? I've seen many organizations wipe out systems, too quickly in the effort to fix the problem. But what they don't realize is they're erasing the data, the very data they're going to need to understand the full scope of the breach. How did the attackers get in? What persistence mechanism they establish? Because quite often it's not just one persistence mechanism they set up, it's more than one. What if that was the one system that you wiped out, had the second persistence mechanism that could have helped us piece it together? So those are some of the key things that are important within the first few hours of a P1 declaration.
So basically creating processes, ensuring isolation, and preserving the evidence for further details and further investigations if needed.
That's right.
Sandeep, from your point of view, why are organizations shifting away from traditional network access controls and moving towards solutions like zero trust architectures?
You mean beyond the initial buzzword and the buzz of zero trust architecture?
Correct.
Of course. Well, you see, the traditional NAC was built for a world where everyone was in an office, your data was in a data center. The assumption is once you are inside the perimeter on the network, you're trusted. Well, that world doesn't exist anymore, right? your applications are in a SaaS environment, your users are all remote, the inside no longer exists, right? So, and in any meaningful way. So zero trust changes that, and the foundation that it's built on is that there is no trusted environment, there is no trusted network, right? You assume breach. And the way zero trust helps is it focuses on continuous identity validation. So once you're granted access, it's not just that initial authentication that happens, it's continuous validation of that. There is least privilege policies to begin with, right? So your starting point is you only have enough permissions to go do your job and no more, right? And the last thing is context-aware policies. So we're not constantly adapting and changing the policies. They're all done dynamically as part of your zero trust implementation. So it's not about blocking devices at the door. It's about continuous monitoring identity and behavior.
Correct. So essentially, networks became hybrid as well. So that's one of the major key points for organizations to start adapting. Not only network access controls, but also some cloud security as well, zero trust architectures, XDR, EDR solutions, and anything else that can add to that security in order to, basically stay away from cybersecurity attacks.
Yeah.
Why do you think that identity became the new security perimeter?
Well, if you look at most major breaches today, very few involve someone hacking through your firewall, right? They do happen. I wouldn't say it's zero. The answer is non-zero, but they're rare, right? Unless you're dealing with a critical zero-day vulnerability. But you can mitigate that risk if you have proper patch management processes in place. You can mitigate that. So that shifts the focus on identity, because most of the time the attackers just log in like regular users, right? They steal credentials, they buy them from access brokers on the deep web, dark web, they hijack session tokens, they exploit MFA fatigue, and once they have the identity or the initial access, they just log in, right? Now they have access to your applications, your data, your infrastructure, pretty much everything, right? So protecting identity is protecting your environment. And the perimeter used to be a wall, now it's authentication.
Correct. So basically now we need to start protecting the user, or not necessarily start, but we need to do it as one of the first or initial actions in order to secure the network, right? Because these attacks that leverage highly sophisticated exploits against user accounts are becoming more often nowadays.
Yeah.
How has endpoint security evolved from an antivirus solution to something like an EDR or an XDR solution?
That's a great question. Honestly, I miss the good old days of antivirus, where you had to keep your DAT files up to date to remain protected against the threats. But the antivirus technology relied on signature-based detection, which wasn't built for the modern day attacks, right? So what we did as an industry is we shifted our focus towards EDR, because attackers had evolved. They started using legitimate tools inside the environment, like PowerShell, built-in utilities like MS Build, stolen credentials purchased off the deep web, dark web, or harvested through phishing attacks. The traditional AV was not built to protect an environment and enterprise against these type of attacks. So when the EDR was introduced, it added, on top of the signature-based detection, it introduced the capabilities to do behavioral-based detection, telemetry collection, and threat hunting, right? And those became the new norm that allowed the SOC analysts, the defenders, to do a pretty good job at detecting these more advanced attacks. And then came XDR, the extended detection and response. So, I think the marketing teams at some of our, these leading vendors, they realized that, okay, how do we evolve from the EDR? So the XDR fundamentally is you have the endpoint visibility through your EDR, but then you add cloud on top of it, you add your identity logs into it, you add network visibility into it, and combined, now you have extended visibility that allows you to view things holistically that are happening within an environment. So the big shift is this, the security is no longer about the endpoint and malware protection, it's about understanding user behavior.
And that being said, how is AI shaping or improving these detection and response capabilities?
That's a great follow-up question. Everybody is now talking about AI, but what most people don't realize is that the EDR vendors basically have been using AI in the back end, a specific segment of AI, the machine learning, right? In building those behaviors and detecting those behaviors. However, now AI has an expanded role into a SOC environment or a traditional MSSP environment. So AI is incredibly powerful when it comes to scale, right? Humans can't analyze millions of logs, on their own. AI can, right? It's helping reduce false positives, identifying subtle anomalies, and correlating events across systems, right? That's what AI does. It's good at. But it's also important to say that AI isn't replacing analysts. Okay, it's making them more effective. And the best model is human judgment enhanced by machine speed.
From your experience, Sandeep, where is AI creating the most efficiency when it comes to security operations?
Well, security operations have always been your domain, okay? But I've definitely seen improvements, right? Although I don't get myself involved into day-to-day SOC operations, but what I've learned from the team at Bell Cyber is that the alert triage, that's where the biggest gain that we have seen with AI and leveraging AI within our own operations, right? SOC teams are drowning in noise. If AI can help us filter 70 to 80% of those alerts, that's a huge win for the analysts, right? They're able to now focus on the key threats, that are not false positives, so they're not chasing something that is not going to be anything materialistic. So this gives them the ability to focus on those key threats and just respond to them in a timely manner. It also helps summarize incidents, and we have a great implementation of that within our own operations. Our analysis is dramatically improved, and it's much more repeatable, and it's much more accurate. We're no longer just relying on the analyst skill set and their knowledge. We're leveraging these tools that enable us to, in a repeatable fashion, introduce and add all those analysis within our incident tickets that the customers are now appreciating, right? And lastly, it reduces burnout and improves response time.
So essentially, we are on the same page. What I see while running the operation is that the analysts are becoming a lot more efficient, right? So just like you mentioned it before, they are utilizing AI to basically come up with better investigations, to fetch the data and pull the data from all of these different sources where we obtain some of the metrics that we need in order to contain a threat even. And of course, containing the threats and eradicating the threats from the networks was never that easy. Now that we have some of these automated workflows, we can completely focus on what really matters, and we can contain the threats within 5 minutes.
Absolutely. Another way to put it would be instead of manually stitching the story together, the AI does that for us, and the analyst is then able to just build that summarized narrative in seconds, right? And they're able to use that to inform the customers of whatever anomaly they detected in their environment.
How do you see the future of cybersecurity in the next 3 to 5 years?
It's always difficult to predict the future. Okay? I don't think we, as a human race, we've done a good job at predicting future. There's always a new variable that we didn't account for. But if I were to take a look in my crystal ball and predict something, take it with a grain of salt, okay? I think we're moving towards an identity-first security by default architecture, right? As we discussed in one of the earlier questions, it's no longer about protecting endpoints and no longer protecting data centers. It's more identity focused, and I think we're going to double down on that as an industry. Okay? Security operations will become more AI augmented as a standard practice, right? So more and more MSSPs are going to introduce that within their SOC operations if they want to achieve better efficiency, right? And significantly improve their operations. The last thing is the boards are becoming more informed, right? They're asking better questions. So security is becoming a governance conversation and not just an IT discussion, right? And that changes everything for us, right, as an industry.
So basically 10, 15 years ago, we were placing our assets in the cloud. We had to start protecting the cloud 5, 6 years ago. Nowadays, we need to protect the users that are basically utilizing these assets in the cloud, right? Anyone that is creating a solution, anyone that is coming with an application, anyone that has what we call critical assets that need to be protected needs to think about basically what you just mentioned, right? How do we secure the users in a way that it makes sense?
That's right.
What advice would you give CISOs that are currently navigating complex and difficult environments in cybersecurity?
Well, CISOs today are under enormous pressure, right? They're dealing with advanced threats, their budgets are shrinking, and the expectations are only increasing, right? They're being held accountable, so they have a real challenge on their hand. So my advice to the CISO community is prioritize your risk, not tools, okay? Better tools don't necessarily equate to better security. Invest in visibility first. The old adage, you can't protect what you can't see, is still true, and it's in 2026, so that hasn't really changed. And last but not the least is simplify architecture wherever possible. Complexity is the enemy of security. You want to make sure that you can simplify things as much as possible for your users, for your security teams, so that they can focus on whatever is happening in your environment. And lastly, if the leadership understands the risk in operational and financial terms, security becomes an investment and not a cost center.
Basically, CISOs need to find the sweet spot between security, ease of use, and functionality, right? In order to even start creating what they call a cybersecurity mesh architecture that protects their assets, and also, in case they have to add on top of it, solutions or strategies like the autonomous SOC and autonomous containment as well.
Absolutely.
Where do DLP implementations often fail? Is it processes, people, or technology?
DLP is very near and dear to my heart because that was one of the very first projects that I got involved in when I started my journey in cybersecurity. And I found it to be one of the most difficult solutions to implement. And that hasn't changed. It's been 16 years and we're still struggling with it. And the reason is DLP doesn't usually fail because the technology doesn't work. It fails because organizations have not clearly defined what they're protecting, right? The what is the most important thing here. If you don't classify your data properly, DLP becomes noisy. Your analysts will start ignoring the alerts. Your employees are going to start finding ways to circumvent those controls. So you need to have a very well-defined strategy from data governance to technology implementation and user awareness, right? So educating your employees why you're protecting something using the DLP tool.
Correct.
Well, DLP only works when it's part of a broader data governance strategy, not just a checkbox tool.
What makes you the proudest of professional services at Bell Cyber?
Everybody says this, but I truly have a great team behind me. Okay, it's not just one person, it's the entire team. And we have built our team from ground up. And today, they are capable in deploying any solution, any security tool that is out there in the market. And I'm really proud of that. We have found these amazing individuals in the market. We kind of, gave them the opportunity to grow, and they took it and they ran with it. So that's the one thing that I'm really proud of, my team.
Correct. And in addition to that, what I feel is that it's really easy to find anyone that knows how to manage a technology, right? What is difficult is to find people that understand how to put in place a strategy instead. So that's one of the key points of the team that you're managing, professional services. They are really good at finding strategies, not just the technology, not just the integrations per se, but just creating what the clients are asking for and making sure that we fulfill our client needs.
Absolutely. And I think they take pride in that, in conveying that message to the client and making sure, they understand the client requirements and they do a really damn good job, okay, on whatever they're, there to do for that customer.
Okay, and finally, Sandeep, why Bell Cyber?
Well, let me say it was a fluke, okay? It was a fluke that I joined Bell Cyber. I was happy, working at a large solution integrator, one of the big four. But then my current manager, Javed Ahmed, he reached out to me out of the blue. He presented me with this opportunity, and then I took it, and I'm glad I did that. And that was 10 years ago. At Bell Cyber, I have learned so much. I grew my technical capabilities, my skills, and we built this amazing team. Again, going back to the previous question, and the team is that I'm most proud of, and not just my own personal accomplishments. It's overall what we have done at Bell Cyber, where we took a small 10 people company and grew it to 100 people until we got acquired by Bell Canada about 2 years ago.
Thank you, Sandeep, very much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. It was fun.
Thank you so much for watching. See you next time.